Hi, Lies. Welcome to 11 Questions.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Are you a morning person or a night owl?
Well, I used to be a night owl until I got a dog. I was the biggest night owl on the planet. And then my dog, she will not have it. So she gets me into bed at night and then she wakes me up to go for her morning walk. So
What's a perfect weekend for you?
during COVID, all I can think of is a weekend in New York would be really nice. But a perfect weekend really is a couple good audiobooks queued up on my phone, beautiful 70-degree weather so I can walk and listen to the audiobooks, and also some clear time in the mornings to write. My favorite thing for a weekend is just good books.
What's your favorite place in the entire world?
I really liked every place I've lived and most places I've been. For beauty, I would have to say the west of Ireland. I've been there a few times, and every time I'm there, I just stand in place and stare around like an idiot. The place I feel the most like myself, or the most, it connects me to my youth, is New York City, Manhattan, with all of its filth.
Do you work in a messy place or you are an organized person?
You're not going to be able to see around the computer here. I am organized I have method in my madness, but I think from the outside, it's madness. I mean, all of these books actually are organized. They're divided between fiction, the books behind me, fiction and nonfiction, and by author alphabetically, and by subject in the nonfiction. And then there's a reference and a poetry section and even cookbooks. I can organize something if I have a principle to organize it by, but when left to my own devices, I'm a mess.
Did you always want to be a writer?
Yes. I wrote my first book when I was 3 years old. I still have it. It was the completely unambitious history of the world. And it began with God creating the heaven and earth. I don't know where. I went to a Catholic school. I was a preschool. I got a picture of God. Was apparently a head on a rock with a beard and a halo. And all the way up until I think just the day before I wrote the book. And it had important things in it, like Stegosaurus and my sister and the flowers in the garden. And, I always wanted to tell stories. And I think it's a very hard thing to do. And I think I needed time to start really trying to do it well. I had to read a lot of books and figure out what stories I wanted to tell. But I always wanted to do it.
And now when you write your stories, do you follow a routine?
I have a time routine. I like to write in the morning. That's when my brain is now fresh. I used to write in the evening. That's not true anymore. But my stories themselves, I don't write to a pattern. I write as it takes me. And I have a thought. I have an idea of what the story's about. And then I'm writing. And then the really heavy lifting is done in the revision, where I'm sorting out what really belongs and what doesn't, and taking the stuff out that doesn't belong often clears space for stuff to come that should have been there or needs to be there. It's a very arduous and inefficient process, but it's really fun.
And is there something that you find challenging in the whole writing process?
Oh my God, everything. I think the hardest thing for me, not the hardest thing probably ever, but the one I was just talking about to a friend, is when to introduce backstory in a book, because it requires the reader to pause, and it can feel self-indulgent. It can stop the action. The reader wants forward motion, because you want to read a story. You want to fall into a book and just keep falling. And you want the author to be sort of skillful enough to insert the information as needed. Every character comes with backstory. Every situation comes with backstory. But when do you gauge the reader is ready for that backstory? And so that's always a challenge. And I find myself pushing it farther and farther off in the story. And it actually works best that way. And sort of sprinkling it in around in digestible, easily understood bits.
Where do you usually find inspiration for your stories?
I don't think there's one place. It's really something that strikes me and sort of wiggles around in my brain for a while. Usually I use the analogy of a Tootsie Roll, unwrapped Tootsie Roll or sticky candy in a junk drawer. where it sort of rolls around and picks up all kinds of stuff. And I know it's crazy, but it's a good analogy, I mean, accurate analogy, because I'll have just a thought and then a lot of other things will accumulate around it.
And if you hit writer's block, how do you work around it?
Oh, it's so hard. I did have writer's block for a while because I have a bit of a perfectionist nature, and it was very, very hard for me to leave a messy draft. And I mean, my study may be messy. I mean, there's a cup of tea over there, there's the pencil sharpener, there's like my air can of compressed air. Like, it's not particularly organized, but my draft, I have this need for it to be perfect. And I've gotten over that. But I got over it with the help of software, because the ability to put digital stickies onto my draft as I write has helped me, because I know I won't miss those. I won't miss that that is not the way I wanted to say it, or maybe that name isn't correct. So I have, as I write, my draft becomes filled with these digital stickies. I highlight a bit of text and just slap a sticky on it. And by the time I'm done, it's thousands of stickies, thousands. And when I revise again, I've gotten up to the place where it's about 6,000 to 7,000 notes. And they say things like ugh, or change, or fix, or cut ? And sometimes very complicated stuff. But usually it's very simple, just marking it. And when I do my final revision, I'm removing from page 1 all the way to the end, all of the stickies, which is basically making 1,000 choices all the way. And if I didn't have that crutch, I don't know that I could get off like the first page, because I would be like, this isn't perfect, this isn't perfect, this isn't. But when I have the digital sticky holding the place, I know that I will have to address it. It's just been a wonderful invention for me.
If you were to be deserted on an island, which 3 books would you pick?
Oh my God, that's very difficult. Which 3 books? Well, they have to be really long. I would probably bring Life After Life by Kate Atkinson, because I could read that 1,000 times. And I would also like to bring the audio version, because that was beautifully read. Oh, I'd want to bring a David Sedaris book, because, and again, the audio is really good for that. I like to listen and read, and even the same book, because you get so much from both. David Sedaris is so funny, and I think there's so many ways to read into his work, as he, his everything is a lot of layers. And the third one, I don't know, maybe a book I've been trying to get to, and that would be this whole shelf here. So maybe there's literally a shelf that's it's a bookcase, it's about 4 shelves of books that I mean to read. So I would pick one of those, and I'm not sure which.
If you were to pick one interesting life experience to share with us, what would you tell us today?
Because it's no longer a thing, I might share the story of what it was like to be on call when I was a physician, a resident in training, and how hard that was to be on call for 40 hours in a row, and just, your knowledge base hadn't caught up with the questions being presented to you, and how scary it was, and how important the work felt, and how I felt pushed to my extremes. So it's a big experience. I don't think there's any one little experience.